Stephanie Dews, one of my subscribers, sent me a DM that led me to this story right here that I'm about to bring to you. This story right here is probably not going to get any traction at all. It probably won't get picked up in the same way that Ahmaud Arbery's story got picked up. Hopefully it does, but something tells me it's going to get buried. And the reason why I say this one is going to get buried even more so is because of the time that it happened. Now, we know when Ahmaud Arbery was killed, he was killed about a week or two before the virus outbreak occurred. Well, the story with Breonna Taylor, who was the woman in this picture, her story occurred right in the middle of when the outbreak was going on, the virus, because she was killed at the end of March. I believe maybe literally probably right at the end of March. So that's right at the point where everybody was still in panic mode when it came to this virus. But I'm here to bring you her story today. This young woman's name was Breonna Taylor. She was 26 years old. She used to work as an EMT, and she was killed during a police raid at her boyfriend's home. You want to know what I'm starting to see as a common theme when it comes to black women being killed by the police? And it's not saying that this is the only way, but I've noticed this, that many of them happen to be killed during a police raid or gone wrong. Whenever I think of something like that, I think of Ayanna Stanley Jones, the young girl who was killed in a police raid when they were looking for her dad, and she was shot dead right in the head or in the chest. I forgot where they shot her at, but she died sleeping on her grandmother's couch. Corinne Gaines, she was killed when they raided her house while her kids were there. And now you have this story right here. But I'm going to go ahead and read the article coming from Blavity. A 26-year-old woman in Kentucky was allegedly shot and killed by police while she was in her apartment. Breonna Taylor was sleeping with her boyfriend Kenneth Walker when police raided the home for a narcotics investigation at around 1 a.m. She was already an accomplished and certified EMT for the city of Louisville and currently working for U of L as a medical tech. This is not a woman who would sacrifice her life and her family morals and values to sell drugs on the streets, said Bonica Austin Taylor's aunt, according to WHAS 11. Taylor's 27-year-old boyfriend spent 2 weeks in jail after he was accused of shooting Sergeant John Mattingly in the leg during the raid on March 13th, WDRB reported. So, this raid actually happened on March 13th, not the end of March, so excuse me on that. It's just, I got it confused because this article was posted on March 30th. But still, that's even worse because this happened at the beginning of the virus. This definitely wasn't going to get any traction. And to be quite honest, even if it wasn't for this virus outbreak, I have a feeling it probably wouldn't have gotten that much traction to begin with. Now, listen to that. It says the boyfriend spent 2 weeks in jail for shooting the sergeant in the leg. And then it goes on to say when it happened. So the boyfriend got put in jail for 2 weeks for shooting at them when they raided the wrong house. Look at that. For him trying to defend not only himself, but his girlfriend. But the way that they led into that, you would have thought that he was in jail for 2 weeks for a previous crime. But let me continue. Defense attorney Rob Eggert said it was an improper raid in which officers broke into Taylor's home unannounced and, get this, shot 22 times. 22 times. They said it was an improper raid because they came in unannounced. They didn't even give a warning that they were coming in. They just came in. And most likely probably went to the wrong house. Let's see if they mention that. It was incredible that Mrs. Taylor was the only one killed, Edgar said. Had Breonna Taylor been killed by anyone except police, the person or persons responsible for her death would have been charged with a homicide. That pretty much lets you know that none of the people that was there were charged with her death. Edgar said Walker didn't know he was shooting at police when officers raided the house while the couple was sleeping. Walker wishes to exonerate himself, the attorney wrote. His girlfriend was killed in a hail of police bullets while naked, and he himself simply acted to try to protect himself. Police said body camera footage isn't available because the department's criminal interdiction division, which conducted the search, doesn't wear body cameras. Oh, how convenient. How convenient. So they do that so they can clear themselves of wrongdoing and make it seem like they were all justified in what they did. But you know what? Even with them body cameras, they could still find a way to get off. One neighbor says she heard gunshots and also heard Walker yelling for help, but she didn't hear police announce themselves. Police gave a different account. See, this is the part where because they didn't have the body cameras, now they can give a side of the story that doesn't exist. Saying they had to bust the door open after repeatedly knocking and announcing their presence. Well, if you knock hard enough like that, I'm sure somebody probably would have woken up in the house, whether it had been her or her boyfriend, or a neighbor probably would have saw, or if they came over with a bunch of flashing lights in their cars, someone probably would have seen it, because guess what? Not everybody is asleep at 1 a.m. So I don't believe them for 1 second, especially since they don't have body cameras. See, their story has holes in it already that I don't believe whatsoever. It goes on to say, Sam Aguiar, an attorney representing the family, said this was clearly a botched execution of a warrant. Chief Steve Conrad, however, said he is very frustrated by Mr. Walker's release to home incarceration. Look at that. The chief of police is mad that the boyfriend who was defending himself and trying to defend his girlfriend, who shot back and hit one of his officers in the leg and ended up in jail for 2 weeks because of it, is mad that he got released. Not because his officers did an improper raid that killed this woman and could have killed her boyfriend, but because the boyfriend defended himself. But let's not forget where we're at now. We're in Clantucky, as the name has been dubbed. This is Moscow Mitch's state. I certainly understand the need to make sure we are releasing those people who don't pose a risk to our community from jail, especially as we face the outbreak of the virus. So that's why he was released, the chief told WDRB. However, it's hard for me to see how a man accused of shooting a police officer falls into that low risk category. Are you hearing this? Are you hearing this? The chief of police is mad he got released, and he feels that even in the midst of self-defense, because that's what it is at this point, he feels that in the midst of self-defense, that should have been seen as a higher level crime because one of his officers got shot. Well, I have a question to ask his chief of police. So Steve Conrad, did the officer who got shot in the leg by a man defending himself and trying to defend his girlfriend and his house, did he die? Because I'm looking, and it didn't say anything about him dying. It just said that he got shot in the leg. He didn't hit any major arteries. He didn't bleed to death. He's still living. He probably had to go through some physical therapy to get his walking back correct. But somebody did die that day, and her name was Breonna Taylor. And that was the fault of your officers being reckless. And who's to say that that sergeant that got shot wasn't the one that gave the fatal shot to her? But see, he doesn't care about that. He only cares that his officer got shot in the leg. And he's mad that the boyfriend did not stay in jail, even while this virus was going on. See, he was trying to get the boyfriend either way, either get him in jail for a long time and hope that he stays and contracts the virus, neither of which happened. And he's mad about that. The Louisville Corrections FOP Lodge criticized Judge Ulu Stevens for releasing Walker. Uh-oh. 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 Now, those of you, time out. Now, those of you who have been following my channel know that I have been talking about Judge Olu Stevens for a long time on my channel for what he did involving a previous case in which a black defendant almost went to jail, but they felt he needed a fair trial and he ended up getting off and they suspended him for 3 months. This is that same Judge Olu Stevens. I feel like he's probably one of the best people, the best black people probably in Kentucky. So he presided over his case. And he was the one that decided that Kenneth Walker, the boyfriend, should be released from jail. I tip my hat again to Judge Olu Stevens. And of course they criticized him. Let me read that part again. That part made me feel good. Now that's called being on code. The Louisville Corrections FOP Lodge criticized Judge Olu Stevens for releasing Walker. Judge Olu Stevens' actions in this case are especially bewildering and problematic because the Louisville jail is currently experiencing the lowest inmate numbers since the 1990s, so an overcrowded jail did not figure into Judge Stevens' decision to release an alleged attempted cop killer back into the community without even so much as requiring bail. Now look at that statement. Listen to that statement. They called him releasing an inmate problematic because the jail population is low, so that was no reason for them to release him because they couldn't use the excuse of overcrowdedness. And then they went on to say that Kenneth Walker is an attempted cop killer. See, here's the thing. They're telling on themselves again. They're basically saying that they can shoot at you, but you bet not shoot back. You better take these bullets. Like I said, he did not even kill the cop. The cop got shot in the leg. But his girlfriend, Breonna Taylor, the one on the screen, is the one who was killed. But they have no remorse for her. None. All they want to do is stick it to the boyfriend that shot the cop in the leg. The officers involved in the incident have been placed on administrative reassignment, of course, WDRB reported. According to the families, Walker had just accepted a job at UPS before the incident. Wow. Now it's crazy. This story was supposed to be more about Breonna Taylor, but reading this story, it felt like it was more about them trying to get the boyfriend for defending himself and trying to defend his girlfriend and their space against these killer cops who busted in like they were SWAT unannounced. And they tried their best to make it be about the boyfriend being a quote unquote attempted cop killer. Like they blew that up all out of proportion. But shout out again to Judge Olu Stevens again for being on code and for releasing this guy without bail. Listen to that, without a bail attached, which means he had to pay no money to be released and only was in jail for 2 weeks. I wonder if they're going to try to do something with Judge Olu Stevens again. Because like I said, you know what happened the last time when that happened? He got suspended from being a judge for 3 months without pay for doing remotely practically the same thing. But I do offer my condolences to Breonna Taylor and to her family and friends and associates. And like I said, notice not one time, even if they had to fake it, because a lot of times they're not even genuine with this, did the police say, I apologize, we were wrong, I offer condolences? None of that. It went to, we need to get the boyfriend. Why isn't the boyfriend locked up? Oh, it's unconstitutional to release him back out there because he's an attempted cop killer and all this, that, and that BS. That's all it was. Now you see how they get down in Clantucky. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Okay, I wanted to come back on here and add this one little piece in here. And by the way, this is Kenneth Walker. This is the boyfriend to Breonna Taylor, who was the one that they're really going after, to me and honestly, in this story. But there's one other thing I wanted to bring up that stuck out to me that I wish I had mentioned in the initial recording of this video before I cut it off. Notice that the police chief, that Steve Conrad guy, did not one time mention the recovery of the alleged narcotics that they were going into the house for. Didn't mention it one time. Didn't say anything about Breonna Taylor being killed. Didn't say anything about the drugs being recovered. But all he could do was talk about how mad he was at Judge Olu Stevens for releasing this guy after being in jail for 2 weeks for being an attempted quote-unquote cop killer, when all he was doing was protecting himself and trying to protect his girlfriend after they came to their house unannounced with no body cameras on. To me, it almost sounds like a setup. And also, to me, it sounds personal. I would not be surprised if Kenneth Taylor has had a run-in with the police before, and I would not be surprised if they were sent out there to actually go kill him in an ambush style attack. But unfortunately, Breonna Taylor became a casualty in all of this. That's just my takeaway on it. But y'all let me know what y'all think.